We're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's April 13th here in Seoul. I'm Shin Yeun, and this is News Generation, where we make the news at Arirang's very own open studio. Every morning, we'll discuss the top issues and latest current affairs affecting people in their 20s and 30s. Joining me in the studio is Kim Xiang.
Good morning, Yeun.
And Cheska Dainha.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. And both are here to speak on people in their 20s and 30s. Now, we're going to start with our news feed. A news feed which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. We have hashtags to explain what. Now, from Wednesday, South Korea has been seeing the worst levels of yellow dust this year, shroud the nation to the point where authorities issued the second highest level advisory warnings. The strong northwest wind swept the yellow dust over from Mongolia, and the air quality is expected to remain very bad till the end of today. Moving on, there's Valentine's Day, where women give men gifts, and White Day when it's the other way around. There's also Black Day, which falls every April 14th here in Korea, which is a day for singles to celebrate their singlehood by eating black bean sauce noodles. That's why many jjajangmyeon restaurants or online shopping malls have prepared promotional events or discounts. Many people on social media are sharing information on where they can eat a plate of noodles a few bucks cheaper than usual. South Korea's job market has seen some progress for the first time in 10 months. Statistics Korea on Wednesday reported that 469,000 more people found jobs compared to the same time last year. Analysts said this type of progress shows that Korea has finally returned to normal from the pandemic. And let's take a bit deeper. Let's look a bit deeper into the third news item. While the Korean job market seemingly came back up on its feet, it's worth noting that such job growth was driven by people aged 60 and above. Employment had dropped for those in their 20s and younger, also among those in their 40s. Now, the areas that saw the most new workers were in the healthcare sector and customer service industries like restaurants and hotels. Now, here in the studio, I'd like to ask what you guys think about these figures. I sort of interpreted it as having to work past retirement, and the average age here is around 60. What about you, Cheska?
I mean, I would first like to understand the figures a little better, like what the story is, but there were some very interesting opinions that did see this as a positive sign that more seniors are being productive and active, and the fact that society is willing to hire more people. So in the States, I did see people over the age of 60 going back to college to get a degree or getting several jobs after the retirement age. So in a way, the fact that there are more seniors at the workforce could be a positive sign and maybe beneficial for the society as well.
Now, Cheska, you mentioned the positive aspects to it, but a lot of netizens actually paid more attention to the negative light. They were saying the people have to work past 60.
True.
How hard is life for you to be working past your retirement age? A lot of people were citing like economic hardships and also the quality of work that these workers had to go through. And I would like to ask Xion, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, as you've rightfully mentioned, of course it's not mandatory for workers to work after the age of 60. And as Cheska mentioned, I think there are definitely a lot of positives that these elderly people are getting the opportunities when they want some. But I think there are concerns also arising from the data we just saw. A lot of them work in the service sector, healthcare sector, as a contract worker, temporary worker and things like that, which doesn't really guarantee the safety of their jobs. So I think that that concerns people in the way, what if the right insurances aren't given to these people? What if they work over the hours, especially if it's in like the hotel management sector, cleaning jobs and things like that.
Without proper insurance.
Without proper insurance, yeah. And also, as you've mentioned, some minority of the elderly do get great opportunities. Some of them finish their corporate life and can go back being advisors, senior advisors, or even teach Korean to different foreigners and different audiences as well. So I think it really depends on what you look at. I think the data shows that there is an increase, which is positive, but we should think about what it comes with.
Yeah, we should look beyond the figures. And that was our news feed for this Thursday. Moving on to today's discussion topic. Now, love is tricky, but you know what's even trickier? When there's a lawsuit involved. And that seems to be happening to a growing number of young couples here in Korea who are suing their exes. To find out more, take a look at the screen. Earlier in March, a 30-year-old man stood in front of court with his ex-girlfriend of 2 years. He had filed a lawsuit months back, demanding that his ex pay a portion of what he had loaned to her throughout their relationship. When they were dating, the man lent his girlfriend roughly $4,000, and the girlfriend had been paying him back a few $100s at a time until last summer. That's why this 30-year-old chose to sue his girlfriend for the $2,000 he still hadn't received. While talking to local reporters, the man said it was definitely a hassle for him to take time off work to come to court. But it was more important for him to get his money back, especially since he and his ex are basically strangers now. This is just one of the many cases where couples break up and go to court over monetary issues. Attorneys say most of their clients are in their 20s and 30s who seem to have a stronger sense of what they're rightfully entitled to. Today, NewsGen looks at 3 questions. 1. How common is suing your ex-partner to get gifts or money returned among the new generation? 2. How do these lawsuits usually end up going? 3. To what extent do Millennials and Gen Z think they should receive things back after their breakup? So, is there such a thing called a good breakup? While that may be debatable, suing your ex would surely be considered a bad one. But surprisingly, a lot of young couples in Korea have filed lawsuits against each other after breaking up. And Xiong, are there any exact figures showing us just how common this is?
Yes, I mean, having to go to court over a breakup would really be an unfortunate situation, but it has been becoming more common than you'd think. The general public is also pointing to the fact that this may be a trend in the younger generation, seen from a spike in the recent number of lawsuits regarding loans, gifts, or any financial exchanges between couples that reach the court's final verdict.
Wow.
According to South Korea's court cases database system, 10 years ago, in 2013, there were only 2 cases of such dispute. However, from 2015, the number shot up to 101, 2017, 130, and a record high in 2019 at 213 cases.
Wow, that's a lot.
Last year, it calmed down to around 175, and for this year, and it was also the beginning of the year, until the 18th of March, there have already been 38 cases that reach adjudication.
Right, so it's quite alarming to see the number of lawsuits jump up recently.
Yeah, I mean, it's still not that many, but it does, as you can see, a huge increase,
Right,
almost none to a 90-fold increase.
Right, it's an upward trend for sure. But another important question I like to ask is what type of situations or reasons propel exes to sue each other? And to help our viewers better understand, we're going to be reenacting one lawsuit. So now, think that we're at court. It's no longer Xiong and Cheska right next to me. So first off, who are you?
Hello, I'm Keanu, my honor, and I'm here today to sue my ex-girlfriend of 6 years.
Okay, and you are?
My name is Jessica, and I don't know why I'm here, to be honest. I mean, we have
Look at me, Jessica.
We have been lovers for 6 years. Now we broke up. It's clean slate.
You guys been together for 6 years?
We've been together for 6 years, my honor, and Jessica here did borrow money from me, a sum of $10,000 of which she paid me back every few months, $200, $300 sums, small sums, because she promised that she'll pay it back someday. Well, I have still $2,700 left, and I need to get it back, my honor.
Now, you're speaking under oath, right?
Oh, 100%.
1, there was no signed contract or any legal obligation that I had to pay the money back. 2nd, we were in a relationship. He lent me the money because we were in love, and I paid back because of good conscience.
Not anymore.
Not because I had any legal responsibility to do so. So I don't even know why he's suing me over this. He doesn't have any legal holdings.
Of course, I don't have an IUU or anything because she was a lover, but I can prove to you that she's been giving money back. It doesn't make sense, my honor.
We were lovers. I did it out of good conscience. And for one, if you're going to ask me for the money, then I want the coffee machine that I bought for you when you moved into the new house, the fancy jacket that I bought you when you got your first role.
Our house.
And I even bought him a golf club.
Machine.
A golf club because he said
golf club.
All right, order. Okay, all right. I can't say anything to that. I'm not a lawyer, but we actually do have a lawyer prepared for the later on to find out what the situation is about. But Jessica and Keanu, you guys brought light to an actual real-life lawsuit that's ongoing at the moment. And Jessica, beside all this comedy, tell us what it is like in real life. What are these lawsuits about?
And yeah, surprisingly, even though we did it in a very comedic fashion, you think, But the matters we discussed is extremely relevant to real life cases. I mean, the monetary compensation and the gifts exchange are actually what the couples fight about in court. And the amount of the 175 cases that were reported, some are not even counted because the amount they sue is so low.
Right.
So there were cases where a man sued his ex-girlfriend over merely 2,000 US dollars. Not because the amount is less or small, but it's not about the amount, but more of an emotional component that is there as well.
Because as you said in this little reenactment, it was, you guys were lovers.
We loved each other
You guys
very
loved
much.
each other for
What
6 years.
happened,
But
Keanu?
she was unfaithful.
No, the situation keeps on going. But
Grace, please move forward.
I know. The tricky part about these lawsuits is that it's hard to define whether gifts or cash given between partners can be considered loans, especially since it's not that common for lovers to write IOUs or debt acknowledgement forms, and that's why they usually end up as civil litigation. But let's hear from an actual attorney to see what type of charges can be made between former lovers who demand to be paid back or compensated for any monetary gifts made during their previous relationship. We're now going to hear from a professor of law at the University of Virginia. It's Professor Naomi R. Khan. Welcome, Professor Khan.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here.
Now, Professor, you saw Xiong and Cheska, or Keanu and Jessica, play out a scenario where people sue their ex, demanding they get paid back for the money or even gifts exchanged during their relationship. And based on the situation they played out, what are the actual grounds for this lawsuit?
Well, as they pointed out, there was nothing in writing. This was done for love. At least that's on one side of the claim. There are actual, of course, legal claims that can be brought. One would be a basic contract, right? There was an agreement. The parties had a meeting of the minds, and this is a breach of that contract. I know that claim was made. Another is fraud. He could have claimed that the loan was made based on a promise to pay him back, and she deceived him. So you've got different causes of action that, or different legal causes of action that might result in some remedy. One of the big questions, of course, is given the amount of money at issue, how much, if you have a lawyer, then how much are you going to pay the lawyer to recover this amount of money? But there certainly are legal grounds that would form a basis for this.
And that's why a lot of youngsters seem to be doing it here in Korea. But I would like to ask, how common is suing your ex who you weren't even married to in other countries?
Well, I was really impressed at the chart that you had on earlier. In the US, no one keeps track of how many of these lawsuits there actually are. And so we don't really know how many there are. We can read about cases where it happens. But it generally happens within a cohabiting relationship. And as the number of cohabiting relationships increases, I mean, in the US, in Korea, in throughout the world, I think these are going to be more common. There is a question in terms of the enforceability. I mean, if there is an alleged agreement in terms of just what was going on, was this done as part of the relationship? Can this be severed from the relationship? Or was this part of the give and take that's part of any relationship? What explicit promises were made with respect to, say, lending the money or to repaying the money? Was it really a loan or was it a gift?
Yeah, I mean, also, Professor, I'd like to ask, I mean, as we've enacted as well, I mean, most of these contracts are verbal contracts between couples or ex-partners. Could you possibly share one lawsuit that involved people, obviously, who were once in a relationship suing each other for money, and how the verdict turned out?
Well, let me first of all say, and of course I am a lawyer, right? It's really important to put all of these things in writing because, right, then you don't get into the situation.
Of course, yeah.
But one of the most, sorry?
Right.
Yes. one of the most famous lawsuits in the U.S. that we have a term in the U.S. It's called palimony. You can get alimony when a marriage dissolves, right? So we have palimony. It actually came about in a case that was decided in California in the mid-1970s, and there was a really famous movie actor, and there was a woman, Michelle Triola Marvin, who claimed that she had given up her lucrative career in order to keep him company and in order to be his companion. And the California courts, and there was, of course, nothing in writing. There was her promise. He said, "Oh, I made no such promise. And besides, if you court are going to recognize this agreement, then you will be recognizing illicit relationships. You'll be recognizing these relationships outside of marriage." And the California courts said, going forward, we will recognize these types of arrangements. We will recognize that these are valid contracts, because otherwise you, famous actor Lee Marvin, would be unjustly enriched. On the other hand, when it came time to prove the actual contract, she got nothing. There was not shown to be an actual contract. But it was a very famous case. It made history, and I think a lot of us now watch the movie actors' movies just to see what was going on.
Right, so verbal contracts don't mean much. You should keep it in writing. But are there any other things that you should keep in mind? And, God forbid, you do sue someone, let alone your ex-partner.
Right. I mean, if you can plan, right, if when you make that loan, if you really do mean it to be a loan, then yes, get it in writing. And there was reference to if you can keep track of any electronic transfers that have been made. So if a loan was made and there's starting to be a payment back, you can track back and start to show what all of those transfers were. So it's much easier today than it was 50 years ago in the Marvin case to keep track of all of those actual transactions. So make sure that you're if you can't get it in writing, make sure that you keep good records and that you have some idea of what that actual contract was. And also, be careful about these arrangements.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Professor Khan. It was great to hear your insight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Professor Khan made a lot of good points, but it saddened me to hear that you have to do that with your lover, keep records.
Write the IOUs.
I know, write IOUs.
Save those emails.
Yeah, I think
Exactly.
it is what it is.
Okay, so would you like to elaborate?
To be honest, I think, as you've seen, I think in our case, Jessica and myself, Keanu, I think I'll have the upper hand in this lawsuit, to be honest. As Professor Khan mentioned, if there is a record of digital transaction of me getting back the money that she owed me, I transacted the 10K, I guess, in the first place and some money coming back. I think that actually could count as a proof of a loan, as she mentioned. So I think things are becoming easier to track. With the technology as well these days, there's phone records, there's text messages that could be used as evidence.
Cacao messages.
I think that could also add to the rising number of lawsuits in the younger generation because it's easier to gain evidence.
But as she mentioned, is it worth it for you to, hire a lawyer to go through all this hassle?
It might cost more to get a lawyer, to be honest,
And before we continue our talks, let's also hear how our global viewers view this situation. Take a look at the screen to find out what a few had to say. Tira Spell said, "My breakup with my previous girlfriend was messy. Long story short, she cheated. I resented her for a little while, but I never thought about suing her." Sebastian Memphis said, "Do people even sue their ex? I didn't know that. Am I so naive?" Pillow Shafour said, "Sometimes the worst breakup is still better than not breaking up." And these are what our viewers had to say, but I think I would like to now hear your final thoughts about this whole situation. So, as you two are speaking on behalf of the younger generation, Millennials and Gen Z, why do you think a growing number of them are getting involved with these lawsuits?
I think Sean mentioned a very interesting point about the use of social media and records, but another thing I think is about, some cases actually involve hefty finances, like when you cohabit together, like Professor Khan said, the money involved, the sum is actually pretty large. But on top of that, some experts say there are two possible reasons for the rise of court cases in our generation. The first is self-prioritization and self-interest.
Right.
So it's very important for our generation to protect ourselves and prioritize our finances, our mental health, our everything in general. And secondly, perhaps the unstable economy and the job security makes people more finance savvy. So in one of the cases that we discussed, the $2,000 USD dollars that the guy sued for his ex-girlfriend, he had a very good job and he had to miss his work for a week to go to trial. But he still pushed forward. So it's not always just about the monetary compensation, but there's a lot of emotional component
A lot
and
of
also
ego involved, I guess.
I would say self-prioritization.
Self-prioritization. I like that word as
Yes.
well. Now, what are your thoughts on this matter, Xiong? Like, could you ever imagine suing your ex or being sued?
He's already shaking
yeah,
his head.
no, I couldn't. You know, this was difficult to reenact even. Because
I think you gave up at one point.
yeah, I was like, oh, you know, I could just keep everything, you know, keep my golf clubs that you got me for some
Coffee
reason.
machine, yeah.
Coffee machines and things like that. But one of my life principles on finances also is if I'm going to lend my you know, romantic partner or my friends any money, it's going to be the sum of money that I don't really mind losing. So, you know, the money that I wouldn't mind just giving away. So first of all, I wouldn't really lend them too much money. I'll be lending them what I can afford and expect nothing back. And I think that might be a clearer you know, the division of wealth rather than having to go ask for some more, chase someone up. You know, keep it as like, you know, money can easily ruin relationships, even family relations as well. So I think, you know, just drop your ego. If you got some money to spare, then do lend them some, but don't expect anything back.
Only give out as much as you can afford, and you're okay to like give as an actual gift. What about you, Cheska?
So I know you're going to find this really surprising, but even within our siblings, we write IOUs.
No way.
Oh, within your family?
Yes, like my sister, when she lends my mom money or she borrows money from my mom, regardless of the amount, we actually write IOUs. So
Being cut business right there.
Yeah.
So in terms of
Do you also take interest?
She does.
Oh,
she
what?
actually did. She actually. Claire, are you watching?
We'll have to get your sister on here.
So what would you do? Would you be okay with your ex-partner doing this?
Right, so I think the possibility of being sued
would
might be
sue, I
very
guess.
low. But in terms of suing someone, I actually am not against it, to be honest. I think in a way it is a very sensible solution rather than an emotional feud. And especially if it involves business, I think it is a much cleaner and sensible solution to go to court.
All right, and today we had a very heated discussion on ex-partners suing each other for these monetary exchanges, but we'll be coming back with more topics that young people are very interested about. Special thanks to Kim Xiong.
My pleasure, Ian.
Thank you, and Cheska Dain-hong.
Pleasure mine. Thank you, Keanu.
No worries, Jessica.
Keanu and Jessica showing us how it is among the new gen. All right, thank you all for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are
News
Generation.